Well, we're halfway through our magical history tour of 1968. Wow. In the first half of the year, a lot of great music. What do you think? Second half? Yeah, I think so. So let's look at hot fun in the summertime. Let's look at the summer months of 1968 here in part 3 as we discover the music and the times that were going on in the year 1968. As I always say, roll up, let's get on the bus, and let's drop the needle. At the start of the summer of 1968, there's a ton of good music released. And we start right off the bat on July 1st with a band who used to be called the Hawks, and they backed up Bob Dylan, now decide they're going to release their own album. What do they call themselves? They call themselves simply The Band. And the album is called Music from Big Pink. Now look at the cover. It was actually painted by Bob Dylan. Now, Music from Big Pink, what's that about? That's because the house they recorded it in was big and pink. This is the house. And in the basement is where they actually recorded the basement tapes for Bob Dylan. Lots of history there in that house. The record includes the hit The Weight, Caledonia Mission, Long Black Veil, Chest Fever, and 3 songs either written or co-written by Bob Dylan: Tears of Rage, This Wheel's on Fire, and I Shall Be Released. And across the country in Los Angeles, the Doors released their 3rd album, Waiting for the Sun, which includes the big hit Hello, I Love You, which they almost got sued for because the Kinks went, hello, that sounds an awful lot like All Day and All of the Night. Nonetheless, Hello, I Love You was a huge hit. The album also contains Love Street, the odd Not to Touch the Earth that ends with Jim Morrison saying, I am the Lizard King, I can do anything, the sweet Yes, the River Knows, and 2 political songs, the explosive The Unknown Soldier about Vietnam, and the combative 5 to 1. It turns out that this album is the Doors' only #1 album. Over in London on July 17th, we see the debut album from a band called Deep Purple. This is a psychedelic band that rocks hard. It's comprised of Rod Evans on vocals, the great Ritchie Blackmore on guitar, John Lord on organ, Nick Simper on bass, and Ian Pace on drums. The album Shades of Deep Purple contains the hit Hush, a total remake of the Billy Joe Royal recording. Then there's One More Rainy Day, Mandrake Root, and Hey Joe, and the Beatles' Help. In fact, while on tour in the US, they were often introduced as UK's answer to the Vanilla Fudge. On July 18th, 1968, a new electronic company is formed in California. It's called Integrated Electronics. Now, you probably don't know them by that name. Today, they go by the name of Intel, one of the world's largest semiconductor manufacturers. In London, the Moody Blues released their 3rd album. And again, it's a concept album. It's called In Search of the Lost Chord. But unlike their previous albums where they were augmented by an orchestra, in this case, the Moodies are playing all of the instruments themselves, which total up to be about 35 different instruments. Great songs are Ride My Seesaw, Dr. Livingston, I Presume, Legend of a Mind, The Best Way to Travel, and Ohm. And in July, Jeff Beck, who has left the Yardbirds, has recorded some singles but decides now to record his own album. And it's called Truth. And he gets Rod Stewart and Ronnie Wood to join him. What a great record. It starts off with a remake of the old Yardbirds hit, Shape of Things. But with Rod Stewart's wails and Jeff's growling guitar, this song is totally remade. Then we get Morning Dew, You Shook Me, again a showcase for Rod Stewart, and even Old Man River and Greensleeves. But there are 2 songs that really stand out. Beck's Bolero, which is frankly amazing and leaves no doubt what a talented guitarist Jeff Beck is. And even though it's called Beck's Bolero, it was actually written by Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin. And the lineup is Page, Beck, Nicky Hopkins, John Paul Jones, and Keith Moon. And that group actually discussed becoming their own group until it was described that they would probably go over like a Led Zeppelin. And then there's the last cut, the great I Ain't Superstitious. Now this is just a sizzling track that I used to play every Halloween on my radio shows. Back in LA, the Buffalo Springfield released their third and what turns out to be their final album Last Time Around. Now this is really a contractual album because by this time the band had really splintered and each member was kind of off doing his own thing. So it fell on Richie Furay and Jim Messina to put together the record. And the record was kind of made up from songs that had been recorded in earlier sessions. But even having said that, this is still a very good album, maybe even a great album, because with the talent of the Buffalo Springfield, how could it not be? The record opens with the great Neil Young song, On the Way Home. But as was the case many times in the Springfield, Neil's songs are sung by Richie, who does a great job. But Neil would soon be touring as a solo act and singing his own songs. Stephen Stills has Pretty Girl Why, 4 Days Gone, Special Care, and Questions. Neil has I Am a Child, and Richie has Kind Woman. And the album contains one really weird song, In the Hour of Not Quite Rain. Now how this came about was a radio station in LA decided to hold a contest where someone would write a poem, submit it to the Springfield, and the winner then, the Springfield, would write music and record it as a song. Now, the poem was written by Mickey Callan, but by the time that it got handed over to the Buffalo Springfield were no more. So it fell down to Richie to write the music and sing the song. As August comes along and the heat is turned up, we are treated to the second album from Big Brother and the Holding Company, Cheap Thrills. The lead-off is a combination of the two. Then Janice gets all bluesy on Summertime, and then tears the house down with Piece of My Heart. Side 2 starts with a song that Janice wrote, Turtle Blues, and ends with the great Ball and Chain. Although the album sounds like it was recorded live, in fact, only Ball and Chain was recorded in front of a live audience. For the rest of the album, sound effects were added to make it sound like the album was recorded live. The album soared to number 1, but in a few short months, Janice would leave Big Brother and the Holding Company. Another second album from another great band takes us back to London, where Fleetwood Mac record Mr. Wonderful. Besides Peter Green on vocals and guitar, Jeremy Spencer on vocals and guitar, John McVie on bass, Mick Fleetwood on drums, this is the first Fleetwood Mac album that Christine Perfect plays keyboards on, and she sings on as well. Christine Perfect would later marry John McVie and continue with Fleetwood Mac as Christine McVie. The album was viewed as derivative and certainly did not sell as well as the first album, but you still should check out these songs. Stop Messing Around, Dust My Broom, and Need Your Love Tonight. You know, I said that August was really heating up, but things got really ugly on a hot August night, August 28th, when riots broke out in Chicago between the police and Vietnam protesters during the Democratic Convention. It got really ugly very quickly. But things were not just getting ugly in Chicago, but also in Los Angeles, where the Byrds had a problem. They had fired David Crosby, so now they got to find a new member for the band. And Jim McGuinn has come up with this idea that he wants to do a sprawling double album, concept album on the history of American music. So McGuinn looks around and he finally decides on hiring Graham Parsons to join the band. Now Graham has this idea that he wants to merge country music with rock music. So the Byrds start recording in LA and then they move to Nashville. But sparks start flying immediately between McGuinn and Parsons. Parsons hates McGuinn's idea for this concept album, and he wants the Byrds to become a pure country rock group. McGuinn felt rightly that Parsons was challenging him for control of the band, and tensions mounted quickly. Wikipedia states that Graham wanted the album to be called Graham Parsons and the Byrds. Well, McGuinn was not having that. So the album was released as Sweetheart of the Rodeo. And interestingly enough, by the time the album is released, Graham Parsons has left the Byrds. The album contains the great Bob Dylan songs, You Ain't Going Nowhere and Nothing Was Delivered. Then there's Pretty Boy Floyd, Hickory Wind, Life in a Prison, and 2 songs where McGuinn erased Parsons' lead vocals and put his own voice on the track, The Christian Life and You Don't Miss Your Water. Although this album is loved by many and considered the first country rock album, a notion that Richie Furay dismisses, claiming Poco did it first. Nonetheless, Sweetheart of the Rodeo is the least commercial Byrds album ever released. In the hot summer of 1968, 9 albums came out that we talked about, and there was a lot of political unrest. So in the next episode, we'll look at the stuff that came out in the fall of 1968, and hopefully things will have cooled off a bit by then. Anyway, thanks for watching. There'll be a lot of great music coming up in the next episode. Until then, keep a rockin'. If you liked this episode, hit the like button, and you can also leave me a comment down below, and I'll respond to you. If you subscribe, we'll let you know when future episodes come out.